I can render a goddamn poster in it. Hey, I could still do this. I'm literally me. I can achieve anything I want to achieve with enough effort, right? A couple months back, I was trying to find a new direction for my life, since being a YouTuber full-time was too stressful for me now. So I scoured through my childhood interests to see if there was another path I'd want to do as a job, and I came across my very old drawings. And not even really drawings, it was more just like scribbles of AFMAL characters. But it reminded me of something that I've truly loved for years and never even considered doing as a job: animation. Art was never really something I pursued as a kid. My family are all very logical academic people, so creativity wasn't something that was actively encouraged in my household. And I only started exploring drawing around 11 or 12 years old, and by then, a lot of my friends who had started drawing when they were 5 or 6 had already become much better than me, and I got pretty easily discouraged. But one of those days back in August was when my life changed. I got a text from my friend. Hey, I know you're looking for something to do, and my uni actually has an animation degree if you're interested.
Holy shit. Yes, I want to do an animation degree. I love The Amazing Digital Circus.
Yeah. I actually enrolled in an entire Bachelor of Animation because I had a digital circus hyperfixation, and then decided then and there that that is what I wanted to do with my life. One issue though, I hadn't drawn since I did those AFMAL doodles when I was 12. Nor ever used Blender or Maya in my goddamn life. Yeah, great idea, Caboodle. Let's go into my first day of class. Fast forward to about halfway through my semester, I was sat in my design class, and my teacher announces our final assessment.
Alright class, starting today, you have 5 weeks to create a story and design 3 posters around that story as advertising. Completely on your own. My god, yes! 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 Yes!
Considering I had next to no drawing experience and had to make 3 fully rendered posters, you might be wondering why I was so excited. While yes, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing technically, the theory side of this was something I had been doing for so many years prior.
But Cab, you just started this degree.
Well, we had to make eye-catching and meaningful signage that drew a viewer's attention quickly and made them want to see more. And you know what I've been doing for 5 years?
It's just like a
thumbnail. It's a thumbnail. I get to make a thumbnail. And I designed all of my thumbnails, like I always have. Yes, I send them to my wonderful artist to draw them because I cannot draw for shit. But I understand the fundamentals of how to draw people's attention through images like the back of my hand. I thought I had this in the bag, until I processed that I had to actually create these drawings that came into my head, like myself, and I couldn't pay anyone else to do it this time. And as I looked around at my peers that had been drawing their entire lives, my nerves started to kick in just a little bit. Now, this first step of the process was easy. We had to come up with characters, designs, a story, because we couldn't make these posters based on any pre-existing IP. And I'm a creative person with ADHD, which means my brain runs at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So I can come up with story ideas in like half a second. That wasn't the difficult bit. The hard bit was trying to explain to my class and Mrs. Art what the f these sketches meant. You know, when I send my sketches to my artists for my thumbnails, I also have to send them a verbal video guide about what the hell these mean, because this doesn't make sense to anyone except for me. And yeah, I normally do this on MS Paint, but at uni I had access to XP pen monitors, so I thought, you know, the quality of the equipment would make the quality of the drawings higher. It was not! It doesn't work like that. So the first week I did 6 different drafts, just the first thing that popped into my head. It's also how I do thumbnails. And no one knew what the hell kind of feedback to give me, because half of them made no sense. I knew I had to rewire my strategy a little bit. Yes, my normal strategy may work for YouTube because I pay these artists to understand me, but that clearly was gonna be different here. Especially when I had to figure out how the hell I was gonna execute these myself. You know, it's funny. During this assessment, this was the part that most of my friends struggled with the most. To be fair, this was a design class, so it makes sense that they would teach you the theory of design in the class. But my problem was the opposite to everyone else's, because they teach you design theory, but they don't teach you how to draw. I guess if you do an animation degree, that's just assumed knowledge. But it's incredibly annoying because, of course, all of my peers and friends know how to draw impeccably. But you know, they don't know the theory behind it. And I have the opposite problem where I know a ton of the theory from YouTube, but I cannot draw. But before I explain to you what any of these sketches mean, let me take you behind the story and what I was thinking when I made them, because even though they look like they were made in 10 seconds, there's a lot more thought behind them than they look. The story I came up with was called Run, Rabbit, Run, and it's about a nation where the government has legalized unprovoked violence on their citizens, and a cyborg protector called Rabbit, or R4, was created by a powerful military organization called Fox to try and combat this. Not like the TV program. That was an accident. Please don't sue me. R4 was marketed as a hero for the people and quickly became a beloved symbol of tyranny for this nation that I'm now realizing I never actually named. But our main character and investigative journalist, Lena, who also went by Mouse, thought something was off about this sudden rise to fame. Naturally untrusting of corporations promising to fix their country, she vowed not to let history repeat itself. This next bit is spoilers for this non-existent series that I've made. Look, I don't know if I'm ever gonna do anything with these characters and this whole thing going forward. Throughout the process of this, both R4 and Lena have become characters that are very beloved to me, and I do care about a lot, but honestly, I don't know if I'm ever gonna do anything with them. I would love to, don't get me wrong, but you know, time. But if anyone's watching this in 6 years and it's become a series, spoilers! Spoiler warning! As Lena continues to dig deeper, she uncovers a chilling truth, that R4 is not just one hero, but many, consisting of young girls abducted and transformed into identical copies to ensure a myth of an immortal hero. After a heist gone wrong, an attempt to get evidence to expose this information, she was now targeted by Fox's cunning leader, a fox spirit, who was literally just named Fox. I'll explain that in a minute. Lena now races to expose the conspiracy before she is either erased by propaganda or killed. Every step closer to the truth puts her in greater danger, forcing her to decide whether to risk her life to expose the dark secret behind Rabbit, especially with the leader now knowing her identity, or let Fox rise as the new dictator cloaked in heroism and rebellion. So Fox is actually both the name of the company and the name of the fox spirit. I never really figured out if they were going to be the same thing or not, because Fox is like a spirit, tech spirit thing that only R4 can see. And I didn't really get the chance to think about how the company would work, if it was like the spirit and the company were one thing, or if they were like separate, or like how that would work. There's a few plot holes in this story, but to be honest, it's far from refined. I just needed enough to make posters out of it. Now for the research part of it, I love cyberpunk themes and high futuristic tech aesthetics. My Caboodle character is actually based off of the Battle Anima skin line from League of Legends, if you didn't know. So now I had a chance to create a character and a futuristic world of my own. I immediately jumped at the opportunity and went to Pinterest, because God, I love Pinterest. I compiled a board of many different cyberpunk-esque photos from the actual game and from other media. Another one I used a lot is from an anime that I like called BNA, or Brand New Animal, that has a similar kind of aesthetic. In terms of style, I had to be pretty careful about what I picked in terms of like difficulty level, because yeah, I don't know how to draw. Like so yeah, all of these like cool ideas that I had in my head would be great if I could like actually execute them. And in the 4 weeks I had left to go from 0 drawing experience to something that will get the mark I want, learning something awesome like the arcane style was just not viable. I ended up deciding on something similar to like an anime style similar to JJK, as it seemed like the easiest thing I could find references for, and the style I could seemingly fudge the anatomy for as much as possible without it looking like that one Freehan meme. Soon as I was out of class, I was buzzing to go to the computer labs where the gorgeous miles of XP pen monitors lay. I enter the room and a wave of light flows over me. Now with the power of these monitors, I could do anything my heart desired. Maybe. First week I did 4 poster designs. We're gonna call them 1, 2, 3, and 4 for ease of explanation. It mainly encapsulates the design fundamental of movement and using lines and shapes to direct the viewer's eye point to a certain area. The poster depicts R4's POV as locking onto Lena as a target through her visor. For the first sketch, I made sure to include a lot of slanted lines and triangle shapes that point the viewer towards the middle of the screen. Ignore what Lena looks like here. I literally just drew her as myself because I had no idea what she was gonna look like at this point. Triangle shapes are associated with danger a lot of the time as well, or just sharpness. So adding both her visor shape being triangular and the crosshairs being triangular not only centers the viewer's attention on the main character in the piece, but also gives that sense of urgency in the sharps of the shapes. In this initial sketch, I switched between it being from Lena's point of view, like her being afraid in the reflection of R4's visor, or if it should be from R4's POV just inside the visor looking at Lena. That's why one of the text is flipped, is because I didn't have time to fix it before we presented it. The next poster is meant to be R4 walking down the catwalk that's, you know, in the laboratory. Not a fashion catwalk. That would be cool though, with the Winter Soldier pod behind her and like a big flash of smoke with the big fox behind her. In class we were looking at more simplistic and color blocked posters, as well as my friend drew this amazing poster that she showed me, and I really wanted to see if I can make my own version of it. So each of the elements in this were just gonna be flat colors. Now, you can't laugh at me for this one. I know it's not good, and that's why I never developed number 3. But it was meant to be like one of those like really cool angular perspectives of R4 like scratching the walls, and then the title being in like the scratches. And at the bottom of the stairs, like Lena would be there, and she'd be like towering over Lena. It would be really cool. As you can see though, I did not have the skills in this time frame to actually execute that properly. So I scrapped this one pretty much immediately after I finished it. I didn't even show this one to my class because I was too embarrassed. So here you go, worldwide internet, you get it instead. Number 4 was based off of like the old Batman movies, like the blueprints that you would see in them. I thought it was really sick because I was like, ooh, Lena's hacking the system. She's trying to get little blueprints for R4, so she's gonna like expose the mystery. But Mrs. Art said that it didn't really look like an advertisement poster and the title wasn't on it anywhere. And I mean, she was right, and I didn't know how to fix it while still keeping like the story elements that I wanted to be portrayed, so I just scrapped this one, but I still think it was cool. Now, before we get into the character design process, I have to do my YouTuber duties. If you're seeing this, then there is a 75.1% chance that you aren't subscribed. So first of all, thank you for the 25% of you that are subscribed. If we can shift that 75.1% not subscribed to 73 by next video, then I will give you all a reward. So if you hit it, I will collectively draw you guys an artwork of whatever you want to say thank you. So leave your suggestions in the comments and I'll draw whatever is the most liked. I can already tell this is gonna be a mistake, but I'm doing it anyway. And for those who really want to support me, please consider becoming a channel member or a Patreon subscriber. You get a lot of extra bonuses with each tier, and I need to pay for my animation degree. So anything you can do to contribute, I will really appreciate. And even if it's just like rewatching the video in the background, seriously, thank you. All right, that's enough of that. Back to the video. Let's talk about the designs of the characters. Now I'm gonna give a little PSA. I am still a student. As much as I've done YouTube for years and picked up on a lot of the theory behind that because of experience over the years, I've never really done art classes before this degree, and most of the information is just picked up from what friends have told me throughout the years or scraps I found on YouTube shorts. So by no means is this a guide on what to do. I'm just sharing my experience as a beginner. R4 is not the main character of the story, but was my personal favorite to develop. Can you tell why? The dynamic of Fox and R4 was what I based the entire story around from the start, which was a take on Kindred from League of Legends. I promise I haven't played the game in years. I just adore the characters and the lore. I promise, okay? If you don't know much about Kindred, they are a wolf and a lamb who are both the twin essence of death. They essentially work together to bring death to those whose time has come. The lamb in a more gentle way for those who accept their fate, and the wolf in a more violent way for those who try to run. But this concept of a predator and a prey animal who don't typically get along friendly working together is one that's very interesting to me. However, I wanted my own little twist on this, so I swapped the roles between the predator and the prey. The prey animal, Rabbit, being the one who is more physically threatening, while the predator, Fox, being more of the shadow figure. Fox cannot be seen by regular people in normal circumstances, which is why he presents himself through the company and has his will enacted by Rabbit, making it so that his intimidation is still felt by the government and the world, even through this rabbit, who would typically be the last creature you would assume to be a threat. R4's character design went through numerous variations. I have a bit of a soft spot for rabbit character designs, if you can't tell. She was based off a little bit by my YouTube persona, but kind of if she was like edgier and robotic and cool, and if I didn't design her when I was 15. In the first class where this assessment was announced, we got given a big piece of paper to write down all of our ideas on, and I did a very rough first iteration of R4. And yes, that's actually Fox. Fox used to be a lion, but I will get into that later in the video. I didn't initially think she was gonna be a super cyborg character, but I wanted to make her look hollow and lifeless so that it could be portrayed that Fox is the only one who can speak through her. For her character, I was thinking definitely very Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier-esque, as her character wasn't gonna have much personality other than what Fox wanted her to be. But specifically, the Winter Soldier from the Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, the Cold Front book, rather than the MCU, because I'm a loser. Hey, fun lore fact. So even though Fox has wiped all of the girls who became R4 of their individuality and their personality and their memories, the only remaining free will that they have is that each model still has their fears and traumas from the person they used to be. So if one of the R4s was deathly afraid of heights in their past life, they would have a moment of hesitation when on high ledges. It's a tiny detail most probably wouldn't notice, but luckily our main character is a journalist, and let's hope she picks up on it. I say like I'm not the one writing the story. As you can see, R4's design has a lot of sharp edges on it and is initially based on an upside down triangle to accentuate the top half of her being more threatening. I had that as an element from the first drafts of her character. In this version as well, you can also see there's like a visor type thing, which is based off of Murder Drones because I love that show, which I ended up keeping as well as like the Bucky Barnes mask because I love murder drones too much. I couldn't bring myself to get rid of it. In the first week, I was like so excited about R4 that I made a Pinterest board for her and I like refined her more in Photoshop. And you may be thinking like, oh wow, this is so great. You're making so much progress, right? Wrong. I basically spent like all of the second week focusing only on R4 because I loved her so much. I cemented the mask that was like pretty heavily inspired by both Bucky and also Generation Lost Rambo. Holy niche reference. As well as trying to give her pants, which just ended up looking really strange, so I scrapped them almost immediately. In this variation of her design as well, I tried to give her like a strip of color in her hair, as well as like a cool color chest piece, as I was trying to figure out how to make her like stand out and be intimidating in dark environments, which is probably where she was gonna be most of the time. As you know, I love the cyberpunk futuristic aesthetic, so the neon lights was just a must. I also gave her like the switching out weapon hands thing that the murder drones have, which is very disturbing, knowing that she is a human under this. But her character at this point was becoming significantly more cyborg than human. By the end of week 2, even though I had so much progress on R4, I had touched like nothing else. I had no Lena design, no Fox design, and hadn't refined any of the posters that look like nothing to anyone else. I also kind of forgot to mention that not only was I going into this animation degree with no drawing experience, but I also was still doing a biochemistry diploma on the side of this at the same time. Welcome to the insights of my life where I critically overwork myself accidentally because me on holiday in August is like, oh yeah, I could totally do a 9-to-5, 4-day-a-week science diploma as well as a Bachelor of Animation. What a great idea! So my lack of work in these weeks was not due to procrastination. Well, it may be due a little bit to procrastination because I didn't know where to start with the drawing, but it was mainly because I was spending 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. 4 days a week in a science lab and had to run to uni in the evenings every day to work on this assessment. The first few weeks were also during like the final weeks of my diploma and when all my exams were, so I kind of just like offloaded it to like the final bits, which I shouldn't do, and yeah, whatever. Oh my god. Okay, boom. It's 3 weeks left. I have 4 very shitty drawings, 1 very unfinished character design, and still no drawing skills. Cool. Yeah, I could totally do this. The first thing I decided I needed to do this week is actually give Lena a design so I can stop just drawing her as me. Due to Fox's and R4's color palettes being shades of oranges, pinks, reds, and blues, I wanted to give Lena a very vibrant, contrasting palette to that. So I decided to pick like a very vibrant green and purple to make her stand out more. However, I ultimately decided to change it to more of like a bright yellow and orange because that represents optimism and curiosity, which is like her main traits, and I didn't think that her personality really fit like the rebellious neons. I honestly though was like really stuck on how to write Lena when I was first designing this character because I really didn't want to fall into like the Mary Sue cliches. All I really knew when I started writing her was that I wanted her to be a very curious journalist that had a lot of passion to like relentlessly pursue the truth, but also was grounded enough that when a genuine threat was put on her life, she would still be afraid and underprepared. Most people wouldn't know what to do if their passion became unexpectedly a serious threat on their life. And one of her major complications throughout this non-existent series is that she tries to wrestle with whether she should prioritize herself and her life or prioritize the information getting out there and if exposing it would actually do anything. When developing her like journalist name, it of course had more animalistic metaphors in it because I am a sucker for them. And mice are very stereotypically quiet, you know, quiet as a mouse. But I've had multiple people who have mice as pets tell me that they're actually very talkative, so I wanted to put the irony in there. As well as the relationship a mouse has to both a fox and a rabbit. Rabbits and mice could very happily be companions as far as I'm aware, except a fox would happily eat a mouse, and a rabbit might too if threatened and manipulated to. When I was actually developing her character, I didn't think that she was based off someone until I realized much later that she was definitely unconsciously just if Amy Santiago, Lois Lane, and Karen Page had like a love child. Since the show was set in a more futuristic world, I wanted to give her like a high-tech looking kind of uniform. Whilst the uniform is not necessary for a journalist, as far as I'm aware, Lena strikes me as like the chaotic good type. She wants to be very professional and very organized and well-presenting, but will happily, well, maybe sometimes unhappily, bend the rules a little if it's for the better. Lena is also not meant to be threatening. I wanted to give her a lot of curves to her outfit and her hair, and also, you know, the space buns to make her look like a mouse. After scouring through many different outfits of high-tech things, I took together a bunch of images that I liked and just circled the things around that I like, which is a strategy I learned from my good friend Sue, who I watched her do that many times for many years. So thank you, Sue. I think a lot of my pipeline knowledge has come from you, so I appreciate it a lot. Anyway, I took those pieces and I began to adapt them into my own design. After getting a rough idea of what I wanted her to look like, I did a quick sketch in my sketchbook to, you know, get my ideas onto paper, as well as some notes on the first version of her character. As you can see, her design stayed reasonably similar, except for her shoulders, which I made a little sharper as I began to write her having more passion from the initial, like, shy kind of girl that I wrote for her first version. I got some more advice from some of my friends and some people on Instagram. I actually showed these pictures on Instagram when I was like first designing them so I could get some feedback from you guys through my Instagram, so follow me on Instagram. On personal reflection from like 3 months later, I wish I had given Lena some more curls and some more defining features as a part of her design. At the time, I was mainly just using like anime references and templates for everything, as it seemed like the easiest solution with the limited time I had to teach myself this. Since then, I've been learning to draw more and teaching myself more styles and just how to draw people better. And I did a little sketch of what I think Lena would look like if I designed her now with the knowledge that I had now. But you know, it's a learning process, right? Hey, editing Cap here. Sorry for the interruption, but I wanted to share with you all some more about the process of how I make my art now and how I made this sketch with my XP Pen Artist Pro 24 Gen 2 4K monitor that they graciously sent me. More info about that later in the video. This is a little time lapse of me working on that drawing of Lena, and as you can see, even in the couple of months it's been since I worked on that project, I have already improved a lot, and the XP Pen tablet helped a ton with that, honestly. Since getting the monitor, I've been able to practice digital drawing at home a lot more, since my old device I used to draw on was really small, and this monitor is a huge 4K screen, so I find it much easier to draw on. I also love that the screen is adjustable, and I have ADHD, so I sit in some very unconventional positions at my desk, and this monitor can adapt to that perfectly. Both of the pens you get with it as well feel so smooth and lifelike, as well as the keypad being one of the most helpful things I've ever had to assist me with drawing. The monitors at uni didn't have these, and they have made switching between different keybinds genuinely so much easier, as well as this little glove. And I know this is dumb to be excited about, but I've always wanted one of these for such a long time now, and when I saw it came with the monitor, I was over the moon. Recently, I've been doing some animation work for one of my classes in my degree, and sometimes it isn't the easiest to go into uni when I have YouTube work from home and also a hand-drawn animation to do in the same day. So genuinely having this monitor has saved my efficiency so much and allowed me to put my absolute all into my work and my degree without having to worry about the time wasted going back and forth from uni. Thank you so much to XP Pen for sending me this monitor, and let's get back into the video. But talking of character design, can you guess who I did more unnecessary work on my very limited time frame? Yeah, I was working on R4. Again. Listen, she was really like the only part of the process I actually understood how to do apart from the thumbnailing part, so I kind of latched onto her. This time I wanted to give her more of like a actually good looking design, so I used this template from Pinterest. Thank you, Pinterest, we all say in unison, and tried to finalize some of her details before showing it to some of my friends for some feedback. I particularly wanted to make her silhouette stand out a bit more, so I made her ears a lot sharper and more symmetrical, as well as taking some inspiration from these artists that are on the screen by giving her like a hood and her like spiky ass hair. As well as now implementing her shoulder pads, I also added some more pink neon lines. And her legs are filled with compressors and rings that give her the ability to jump as high as she does. Does that work in real life engineering? Probably not. But you know what it does do? Make her look cool as hell. It's hard to see in this drawing, unfortunately, but her leg holsters on the sides are like circles. They're inspired by Camille from League of Legends. And those are meant to be guns. I showed a lot of people those and they didn't know what they were. They're meant to be guns. Now that I had an actual character design for 2 out of the 3 characters, I could start refining the posters into something a little bit more comprehensible to the mind than the mush that they were. Ta-da! Poster 1 already looks so much better, right? Thank you, XP Pen tablets. I genuinely could not have done this without you. In the last week, I got some advice from Mrs. Art and a few of my friends on some things I could improve on. And the first thing one of them commented on was whether to have the visor facing in or out, like if it was in the reflection of the visor or not. And one of my classmates just said it would be easier to achieve the look I was going for from the inside of the visor. So that's what I ended up going with. I also added in just obviously more detail with a 3D pose model, because I was not ready to try and tackle anatomy of posing at this point, and tried to make Lena's hair lusciously flowing in the wind as if something, R4, was running towards her very quickly. I'd say the most prominent change in this version, apart from the development of the layout, was the typography. When I do typography, I really like to try and be smart with it and get the words to mean something in the way that they're placed. So by making the 3 R's into an arrow, it guides the viewer to look at Lena, and surrounding it in red makes the danger appear even more imminent. This feature was something I had to reconstruct many times throughout this process, as to the average person, this version was quite hard to read. Trying to figure out a way that I could still use the arrow concept while having it be readable was something I did go through quite a few changes with, which is why I made 2 versions here, so that I didn't have to make the hard choice and could force my friends and Mrs. Art to... For the background, I really wanted a dark vanishing point centered around her head as yet another element to draw viewers to the center. Essentially, I wanted like all of the lines and shapes to draw you to just one point to make it look as urgent as possible. It was kind of difficult to recreate this next bit in the sketching phase, but at the time I was thinking about giving the background a motion blur just to make sure I don't take any attention away from Lena and to also accentuate the vanishing point. My main mediums I've always worked with is video editing. Man, I learned After Effects when I was 12, so my brain mostly thinks in visual effects. Poster 2, as you can see, had also improved quite a bit. Not as much color blocking yet, but we were definitely getting somewhere. After showing the first version, one of my friends thought it would look better to do a fully rendered version of this rather than just the color blocking, and she suggested having the fox's mouth open and having like the pod that she comes out of inside of it, and she even drew this little sketch to help me. Go! If you're watching this video, thank you. You are so smart, thank you. But fleshing out the full sketch for this poster was so much harder than I thought it would be just for a sketch, man. These ears took me so long to draw, dude. I was banging my head against walls. Why are foxes so hard to draw? I really didn't have a solid concept on what I wanted Fox to look like at this point either, so I was just kind of sticking with the spirit thing. I kind of just looked at Spirit Blossom Ari's fox form and just saw what I could use as inspiration there. The main additions to this were obviously making the fox look somewhat like a fox, but also the scaling to the pod. I had someone in my 3D class tell me that she actually wasn't like the right size for where she was versus the pod, like the sizing just didn't make sense, which was an unexpected insight to get as just someone looking at it for the first glance. But game devs, man, they know this shit. Oh, I also used another 3D model again so I could like flesh out where she would be walking and what it would look like in the final version. I knew that this was gonna be an incredibly difficult pose to draw R4 in, because she doesn't have like human legs. So I needed to buy myself just like a little bit more time to learn more about angles and rabbit legs so I could try to like process how this would even look properly, because God, I talk big about my ideas, but how the do you even do that? Now, I talked about scrapping posters 3 and 4 before, but I still needed a third poster design. So let me introduce you to our surprise guest, Poster 5. Now, Poster 5 was very heavily based off this Ghost in the Shell poster I found because I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. So I tried to replicate it with like my own version of like, it's the moment when Lena walks into the warehouse and she sees like all the R4s and she's like, oh my God, it's so scary. I loved it, but unfortunately that was not the sentiment from everyone else. And I got 4 major critiques on it. The first one was that my title was in Japanese. And apparently this was meant to be more for like an English speaking audience. The upwards angle gave the wrong impression of that the character was in power rather than in danger. I got told it was too centered and I should try and play with balance more, which is absolutely something I do struggle with a lot in design because my brain fucking hates anything that's not symmetrical. And I'm just very lucky that a very important part of Lena and R4's character is that they're organized and tidy and symmetrical. And the last critic was that it didn't obviously tell you anything about the story. I was honestly kind of bummed that Mrs. Art didn't like it as much as I did, but it's important just not to take it personally and just keep moving on and improving your work. And
what do you mean it's Friday? How is it already Friday?
Okay, yeah, time was moving much faster than I would have liked. And the most important thing to finish before this week was over was actually getting a solid idea of what Fox looked like. So I got myself together and gave Fox at least a mood board so that I could see if I still even really wanted to do the spirit thing or not. Let me give you some lore quickly. Way back when I was first brainstorming ideas for this, my ambitious ass wanted to make this project half 2D and half 3D. Mainly stylized 3D, but with the spirit animal that was accompanying R4 to only be in 2D. Since R4 is the only one that can really see them, I thought it would be really interesting if they were the only thing in a different art style, and by extension giving them a different color scheme and theme to the character, by giving them a floaty and spirit kind of style rather than the hard edges and bright neons of the technological world. That's why Fox looked so elegant for so long, and why he kind of looked out of place. I talked about this a little bit before, but I actually made him a lion originally instead of a fox once I decided on the rabbit theme for R4. Because a wolf was just going to be too similar to Kindred. Lions often represent pride and justice, so way back at the super beginning when he was going to be able to be seen by everyone else, I thought the symbolism there would be a really good tie-in. About a week later though, all of this got scrapped as one of my friends suggested to do a fox instead of a lion, and I just thought that a fox and a rabbit relationship works a lot better than a lion did. It was more familiar. As well as foxes having a sly nature to them and being a lot sneakier than they let on. And I also knew that making an entire 3D world and a 2D character in the time frame that I had with the art skills that I had was not gonna happen. But I still loved the idea, so I kept Fox being very spirity and floaty. Moving forward to the present day, I still really wanted to keep the spirit thing because I thought it was such a sick concept to have what the MC could see and couldn't see to be differentiated in art styles, even though it wasn't a whole medium change and wouldn't be as dramatic. So when putting together Fox's mood board, I heavily referenced images from Spirit Blossom Ari's fox form and Kindred's wolf. I also found some like beast fox spirits on Pinterest, but I found it quite difficult to figure out what I wanted to do because I don't design characters of animals very often. I don't think I've ever designed an animal, ever, like a straight up animal. Actually, that's a lie. Well, my very old character design with the one with the mask, you can see it over there. She used to have a form that she could turn into a rabbit, which I guess is, well, I designed that with Sue. But also it was literally just a rip-off of Ari's Spirit Blossom skin form as a fox. It was just completely that. Anyway, back on track. In the end, there were actually a few different images on Pinterest that ended up sparking my interest to go for a different direction with Fox. Guess who we're making changes to? Lena! I'm just kidding, it's R4. But this is the end of it, I promise. Now this is kind of spoilers for the poster later on, but I didn't get around to drawing a final reference for her because I wasn't gonna spend 3 hours drawing another reference for this goddamn robot like I hadn't already spent way too much time on her. But in my defense, I did actually need to give her colors. When deciding where her final colors were gonna go, I needed to make sure with her color scheme that she could still look intimidating and sneaky and dark, but she didn't blend in to her backgrounds because she was gonna be in mostly dark scenarios. I also got some more feedback from a couple of my friends because I showed them everything I did after I finished it so I could get feedback on how to make it better. And a few people suggested that I should remove her hair because it looked kind of strange at this point having something so organic within this very cyborg character, as most of the other organic things that she started with had been retconned at this point. But I really wanted to make her silhouette interesting, and I felt that her spiky hair was like a very integral part of that. So to make sure I could keep her silhouette whilst also adding more technological parts to her character, I changed her hair to be these like long floating blades that she could grab and throw for like a long range attack and they would like come back to her. This specific aspect of her was heavily inspired by the mechanics of Xayah from League of Legends. She has these like feather daggers that she can throw and then recall to her, and I really wanted R4 to have a similar ability. Equally, it was a good way to give her more of the cyber look whilst keeping her spiky silhouette from the beginning. Finally, I moved the compressors down her legs from her thighs to her calves to be more accurate to rabbit anatomy, as well as it just looks so much more intimidating to have the light glowing up from beneath her. And because they look cool as hell. Now that you can actually see R4's final design, I wanted to shed some extra light on some of my design choices. I originally wanted to make R4 much more of an upstanding hero rather than someone who was sneaky and dark and in the background because I thought the lightness of that facade would contrast a lot more with the darkness of her actual origins. But making her intimidating, heroic, and a rabbit was something I was unsure if I could pull off with my current writing skills, and would also be hypocritical to Fox's sly nature and wanting to stay behind closed doors. Originally, when Fox was a lion, it made a lot more sense for her to do that because, you know, lions are very prideful, and it would make sense for his creation to be very light and very heroic and very public. But when I swapped it to a fox, it didn't really make so much sense for R4 to be so bright and colorful. So I made her a much darker assassin, but with just enough positive public reputation that because of the nation's fear and hatred for their government, they would support someone that even they found intimidating. A last resort kind of approach. As to the nation, it seemed like R4 was their only hope to the government that had arisen around them. And of course, there are people that just enjoyed the tyrannical nature of R4 and the chaos that her existence caused. As we got further and further into only 2 weeks being left, I did start panicking a little bit. I had less than 14 days left, and I hadn't even started the final versions of any of the posters, nor did I have a final design for Fox. So I tried to multitask. I ended up developing a more realistic version of poster 2 because I still was kind of waning off the spirit thing at this point, and I wanted to see if I wanted to go for a more realistic fox approach instead. As awesome as the idea of the spirit fox was and what it represented, I had to remember that at the end of the day, this was just a design assessment for making posters. I wasn't actually writing an animated series, and with the current skills that I had and my ever-shortening time frame, I just didn't think I could pull off the message and style differentiation I was hoping for by making Fox a spirit. So I decided to explore other paths. I still wanted him to be spirit-like, but instead of making him all cloudy and soft, I decided to go more with a fire spirit direction, with a lot more strong reds and orange colors, as well as making the base more of a starry yet technological mix. A design that still had ethereal spirit-like aspects, but was still more grounded in their technology world. This version was really the one where I started experimenting with more styles for Fox. I also changed the titles to be like down the left side rather than in the middle because I got some feedback that it was hard to read, which honestly I don't blame them for. Whilst trying to finalize what I was gonna do for the third poster, I graciously took the notes Mrs. Art gave me and tried to improve upon it. This was the second version I made. I tried messing with the angles and balance so it would be a little bit more off-putting, giving Lena more of a smaller, less powerful demeanor in such a big space. I also changed the title to English and tried to show more about the space she was in and the story that it went with. Unfortunately, however, the same critiques were echoed and it wasn't an improvement from the last one. With this concept missing the mark twice, I just decided to scrap it and move on to drawing the final version of at least one of the posters. When it came to actually drawing the posters, God, I had no idea where to start. Yes, these sketches are a good base, but I really wanted this to look really good and like professional, and I really wanted to get a good mark. This assessment and my entire degree is something I really care about, and I really wanted to do well in it. So I was determined to put my absolute all into this, teach myself anything that I needed to know. If I put my whole heart into this, how could I fail? For this poster, my main critique from my class was just that the text was too hard to read, so I ended up deciding on this arrangement for the text instead. I learned that if I slanted the text to the left on the right, then I didn't need to be reversed. And it made the title much easier to read. Considering I have been designing for literally years, I really should have just figured that out sooner. I also took the word rabbit being perspective warped from one of the other versions of the poster 2 designs and used it here instead because it just looked better. For the actual drawing itself, God, this brings back so many memories of just like countless hours trying to just like draw the line right. Just draw it at like the right slant or the right, oh my God. Drawing is like so much more difficult than it looks. It's about the lines. Okay, that sounds really dumb, but you know what I mean. Artists, you get what I mean. I used many Pinterest images as references, and also drew from that 3D model that I had previously placed there as a guide. The UI are just textures that I found from free images online that I just cut out and then put together so I could warp them around R4's visor. The background as well was based on another artwork I found, and which helped me kind of envision the environment a bit more. I was playing with adding like a pink glow outside the word rabbit and then hand drawing the stronger pink glow inside. I also added a manual drop shadow to cover the inside of the edges of the mask, as I wanted to make the colors much more blocky and sharper when I was shading. Effects are something I am much more familiar with than the other sides of art, so I was just like putting them there first, which now knowing the art pipeline, I probably shouldn't have been doing, but I was really just more focusing on trying to figure out how the hell I was going to translate what was in my mind onto this piece of paper, or not, technically it was a screen. But you get my point. I showed this sketch to the people that were around me at the time because I did not have time to wait for another class, and they thought it looked good and gave me the thumbs up to start coloring. Now, I have never rendered or really painted anything before. I only use Photoshop to combine the art that my thumbnail artists make. Fun fact about that, actually. I used to combine all of my thumbnails. This is before I knew how to use Photoshop. I used to combine all of my thumbnails together on After Effects and just take a screenshot of it and then use that, like the screenshot, as my thumbnail. I am not joking, unfortunately. I can already hear all of the comments from the angry photo editors. I am so sorry for my sins. So I had to teach myself an entirely new skill set if I wanted to achieve the look that I was going for. Luckily, I know quite a few very skilled artists, and the internet exists, so to Pinterest I went. In the theory part of art, I've learned a decent amount from friends and colleagues, as I've always been surrounded by very skilled 2D artists, but I'd always been afraid to get into art myself out of like a crippling fear of failure. This assessment was just a really good way to push myself out of that comfort zone and try and do this thing that I've wanted to do for years, which is mainly why I decided to do the style of poster that I did. We weren't forced to do drawings for these posters, as there are many other different types of posters, but I wanted to because I wanted to prove to myself that I could. Not even well, just that I could start. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could start learning this skill that I've always been too afraid to because of everyone else around me being so good at it. I had always wanted to follow in the footsteps of these people, but I had just been too afraid. I threw myself into a whole ass animation degree with zero experience in the space, except for some After Effects edits I made as a teenager. But there is one thing that you should know about me. If I really care about something, I will never give up on it. No matter how many hours of practice or research or painstakingly drawing the same line over and over again until it looks right, I do whatever it takes to get there. Within healthy limits. Not being a workaholic is something I'm working on, and we do not praise the grindset mindset on this channel. No. Take care of yourself. Anyway, I started by doing what I knew from what I'd seen other people do or accidentally seen on Instagram Reels, which was filling in the shapes with some sort of base color. I only focused on the head first because I really didn't want to overwhelm myself with how much there was to do in such little time. I opened Pinterest and began to look up many different types of drawn eyes, just trying to recreate them for practice so I could understand every stroke, every color, every line, trying to find the purpose of why it was there. To achieve the eye that you see now, I went through maybe like 4 different versions of this fully, and it took about 2.5 hours of trial and error. At one point, I tried to recreate this one. I was like, oh yeah, this can be so easy. I mean, it's just colors. I'm good at saying things. And my art friend was like, okay. How hard could it be? I said, the words of a fool. So, how's it going? You motherfucker! Erratic. Some might have called this behavior. Insane, even. But I was so absolutely set on having this look good that even if it took 5 hours just to color a goddamn eye, you bet I was gonna do it. After finally getting to a place that I liked with the eyes, I started focusing on the skin, trying to look at lots of references of real people and seeing what shapes and parts on their face are naturally lighter or darker in what light. Shading with the lips especially took a lot of trial and error, trying to make them look not flat, and to see if I could give her some more prominent features that would build out her character a bit better than the anime references I was using. You might have seen flicks of blue within her eyes and eyelashes. I knew that I wanted the lighting to be like directly on her face, like a flashlight or a car light or something similar to that, but it isn't an angle I see very often in media, so it was quite hard for me to try and envision this, and I ended up doing quite a bit of research on how to try and show this and what it would look like in a painting. Unfortunately, my research didn't really show a lot of the results I wanted, and I only found this one photo really capturing what I was trying to do. So in my darkest hour, my time of need, I turned to the one that has always been there for me. She did so much of the Pride Games art over the years, did all of the official character designs for all 3 seasons of Caboodle SMP, been an incredible artist and a friend of mine for about 5 years now. I bring you Sue Soup, the absolute GOAT. Literally. Sue. So, okay. We have to make 3 poster designs for this class, and my dumbass had all these cool ideas and then went, wait, I only ever make concepts for my thumbnails, and I don't know how to make the thing. So now I need your advice. Pretty please.
Lol. Yeah, let's do this. Just tell me what you're trying to do.
Everyone say thank you, Sue. Anyway, I explained my lighting issue to her, and she sent me this tutorial by Killer Rice Cooker, which is an amazing name, by the way, and it was unbelievably helpful. You artists, man, you guys are so cool. Thank you so much for not gatekeeping from the beginners. I really appreciate it. I unfortunately didn't get many screenshots of the coloring process after this because I was locked the in, but I essentially continued to study shadows and how they would fall on this angle, as well as looking at many of my art style and environment references to understand how to do the sharp shading while still having it look accurate. I went quite heavy with the hair shading, having not a multiply layer, but just using straight black and only using a multiply layer for smaller shadows. What that means, I don't really know anymore. Back then, I think I thought I had more of an understanding about how shadows work than I did, which, to be fair, I really had only just understood. I'm really glad that I am better at this now. I used the clipping mask tool and just a carbon fiber image from the internet for the top of the shirt, as well as downloading some free Photoshop brushes just to do the zipper. I just found them online. As you can see as well, I made the ID tag have some warp to it, so it looks like she just turned around really quickly. As I've heard many other beginner artists complain about the hand, it was also a massive struggle for me. I did notice throughout coloring this piece that I began to understand more and more about how color theory and shading works and needed to use less and less references throughout making it. The lighting on her face was achieved by the method that Sue sent me. Thank you, Killer Rice Cooker. Thank you. Of putting the multiply layer with a very bright color, and it really gave the deer in headlights effect I was looking for. The bottom of Lena may look a little strange, but that's just where the visor intercepts, and I just took it off because I wanted a clean photo. And as it hit 6 p.m. on Friday, I left the building and waved goodbye to the security guard, who I had gotten to know quite well at this point, as me staying after hours was quite a common occurrence now. As time ticked over the weekend, I kept staring back at the clock, each time a little more and more nervous that this assessment was due next weekend, reflecting on the little work that had been done. Well, that's not true, actually. Lots of work had been done, but in the wrong areas. My real issue was that I couldn't work on my assessment over the weekend. My uni was the only place with the XP pen tablets that I needed to draw, and I couldn't work without them. Oh, God?
Oh, mortal. I could be, but I'm more commonly known as...
XP Pen Artist Pro 24 Gen 2 4K resolution? What are you doing here?
I'm here to allow you to finish your work at home so you don't fail your degree. With my 3840 by 2160 resolution and 4K ultra high definition, it's possible to present more content within the same screen area, as well as my 1.07 billion colors that allow for more dynamic presentation.
Wow, that's amazing. But why are you talking like that?
I just thought you'd want to know about all these amazing things about these monitors that you genuinely love so much. Like the two X3 Pro Smart Chip Stylus with 16K pressure level sensitivity that provides a lifelike drawing experience, or the ACK05 wireless shortcut remote that works well with left and right hand.
I do, but I don't know, it's something about the way you're talking. It's almost like you're the sponsor of this video.
I bet I am. But more importantly, with me here, you can now finish this assessment in peace.
Oh.
What's wrong?
That's super nice and all. And don't get me wrong, I really appreciate you being here. Like a super real, like thank you so much. Like appreciate you being here. But that assessment ended like back in December.
What?
Yeah, I'm just making a video about it. Like, did you think that I was working on this assessment while making this video? Please feel free to stick around though. Please. I'm about to start telling the rest of the story. With that, we were down to 1 week left. 5 days to be precise. Luckily for me, by this point, my science diploma was over. Yippee! And I could put my all into these posters. This is not the first time I've done an impossible amount of work in a small time frame. Surely nothing was gonna stop me now. After I finished Lena's coloring last week and really understood the process of rendering, I had a step-by-step process plan for how I was gonna finish this piece. So I decided to clean up the typography and remove some of my testing now that I knew what I was gonna do. I cleaned up all my experiments with the effects just to get everything looking nicer so I could put it in properly later, and also added the red glow to these 4 arrows around the crosshair. Crosshair? Is that right? I don't think that's right. Target? Whatever. You know, you can see it. You know what I'm talking about. The next step beyond this was the background, which was the part I was procrastinating the most because I didn't have any idea how to do. In any drawing I've ever done, I always just got too bored before getting to the background. Knowing myself and knowing how badly I would avoid it if I left it till later, I decided to get it out of the way now. Due to my utter lack of experience drawing backgrounds, let alone rendering them, I wanted to keep it as simple as I could and to not take any attention away from Lena. For the basic outline, I just combined a few reference images I found on Pinterest. I noticed that a blue and black color scheme would very perfectly contrast the yellows that Lena has and also the pinks and reds around the UI. Upon some research, I did notice how absolutely time-consuming drawing backgrounds would be by hand, and I would also just have to learn how to do that. Luckily, since I've been creating this entire piece in Photoshop, it's pretty easy just to take textures and warp them onto background pieces, which is also something I already knew how to do due to, you know, all the editing and stuff I've done in the past, which is I will take the wins where I can get them. Then I took a multiply layer and shaded the background in accordance to the light that was coming, you know, off of R4. I added a few extra shading lines in between the grooves of the garage door just to like give everything a bit more depth. And then using some more brushes I downloaded from the internet, I made like a cool like foggy kind of look effect thing. Honestly, the whole background process was much easier than I had initially expected it to be. I reckon the warping of the images actually helped a lot with recognizing the perspective. As I've continued to learn to draw, I've noticed that once I have like a rough shape, I can see the 3D aspects really clearly. It's just trying to get those initial lines there is the thing that I struggle with. I find it much easier to tweak things into the right shape that they are. That's why I've discovered the liquefy tool, and I love the liquefy tool because I know how things are meant to look. I just can't do them with my hands. My next process was the inside of the mask and adding the typography to the title and the tagline and all of that stuff. I used the shading lessons that I learnt before, plus the inside of Bucky's mask as a reference to try and give that feeling of claustrophobia, as well as, you know, using the symmetry tool down the middle so you can still see the perfection of R4. I ended up adding a more prominent blue light as well, just to give it more of a holographic cyber kind of look. It also helped accentuate like the very sharp reds and pinks versus the much more softer blues in the background, just to really separate that difference. However, the lighting on Lena and the deer in headlights effect I ended up playing around with a lot, as I found it really difficult to try and find a good medium that still makes it look like she's getting flashlight but doesn't wash out the character or make it hard to see like her actual colors. After doing more research online and learning more art just over the past few months, I've discovered that you're meant to do this step like first, like before you start doing colors, you're meant to do the grayscale, like values. That's when you figure it out with where the lighting is gonna go. I did not know this then, but I do now. So I guess I was like kind of going down the right path by, you know, the blue I did at the start with the lighting. I didn't understand the pipeline, and I didn't understand what I was meant to be doing to make the lighting look right. So I was just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it stuck. My point is, this issue could have definitely just been fixed with more prior planning, which I didn't know, but now I do. So that's, you know, learning. Finally, after 2 very long days, I was up to the final steps in my piece to do before peer review, which was kind of like a final class before we had to hand it in so that everyone could say what they thought about the piece. I ended up deciding to change all the pinks that were in the piece to reds, even though pink is a very important color for R4 and her character. Just looking at the poster and knowing nothing about the character, you wouldn't know that. And it was kind of clashing hard with the reds. It just felt like there were too many bright neon colors, so I just made everything red instead. I also gave Lena a red outline because I thought it just made like her body stand out more than just her face. In this step as well, I finalized the UI and essentially the warping that surrounded that, except I replaced one of them with a different free image because it just looked a little empty. I was initially going to put a little drawing of Lena in that box, but considering the time frame I was on, not happening. Absolutely not happening. I also had a bit of a mess around with the layer settings and realized that the color dodge gave it like the perfect holographic effect I was looking for. Hologram effect. You know what I'm saying. Honestly, I think I killed this part. I think that visor looks sick as hell. After finishing this bit, I ended up sending the piece to my peers for a final like look through, and I got a few bits of feedback from my friends. And keep in mind, I'm a bit blind, but maybe make the who pays the price a little bigger or make it bold. Shoot. Girl, I need a full movie right now. Maybe make the flash a bit brighter? Well, not only did I get feedback, but I also had my solution. These guys are so helpful for a little beginner like me. I initially had actually made the text smaller because I thought it would be easier to see on a big screen, but hey, if she says she can't read the text, then we make the text bigger. And after my experimentation, I definitely think it was the right call to make. It looks a lot better. Similar to the light suggestion, I was afraid to add more lighting as I really didn't want to wash out Lena's colors. But ultimately, I do think it looks better and definitely portrays the deer in headlights effect a lot more than it initially did. And as it was approaching 3 days left, I had finally finished 1 poster. Out of 3. All right, Wednesday morning, I get to uni at 9 a.m. like I was every day this week to try and get started on poster 2. But as I stared at Photoshop with the current version of poster 2 open, I just really didn't want to do it, if I'm honest. Spending like 14 hours a day drawing in a dark computer lab wasn't really doing me any favors. And the last thing I wanted to do right now was draw more, if I'm honest. But I knew that I had to make progress on the assessment in some way, and I did not have time to waste. So instead of drawing poster 2, I started to look through Pinterest some more to actually find a full final design for Fox, as I still hadn't actually done that yet. But as I was scrolling through, I found this poster. This amazing, well-executed, gorgeous-looking poster. And I did still need a 3rd poster. I was originally just gonna use one of the designs that I scrapped, but this was gorgeous. This was gonna take so much more time that I didn't have to design an entirely new poster. But now I've seen it, so I have to do it, don't I? No, I don't have have to, for God's sake. My justification for it was that I felt all of my other posters were very illustrated and centralized, and they didn't show off the stylistic but cluttered design in posters that I really like and personally draws me in. Which was true. But I also just have a need to create cool things all the time, and this was gonna be the coolest thing ever. So I decided to create a poster that had some kind of symbolism with a barcode to the use and reuse and abuse of the R4 models. Throughout making this poster, I flicked back and forth a lot because I was unsure of whether I wanted to make it like a propaganda poster of Fox being like, hey, this is R4, or whether it was gonna be a scene from something behind the scenes that Fox didn't want people to see. So when creating the poster, I kept it intentionally vague as I was yet to decide which direction I wanted it to go. Not only was this poster inspired by that image, but also by the Zenless Zone Zero posters and some of the Persona posters I found during my research, as well as the typography being very heavily inspired by KDA. I started by doing the background as simply that's just what I knew what I wanted it to look like first, even though I didn't quite have a meaning behind it yet. But I started creating the basis of what I knew would stand out against R4. But I also used all of those techie, cyberish kind of patterns to, you know, accentuate that she's a robot. Go figure. But also given this like slightly uncomfortable effect of restriction when technology is just too good to be true. Since this idea was very late in the assessment, I had to continuously circulate ideas through my head and get feedback and just bounce back and forth, so it changed a lot. Here you will see two versions of the same file. Oh Cab, why is there two versions of the same file? Is it because you wanted to try different things? No, I wish. It was because this is a story involving Adobe. And what story involving Adobe doesn't have a point where it crashes? Yay! So I had to do the entire sketch again on a file that was 3 hours prior. Thank you, Photoshop. Very cool. While this was a massive inconvenience, I think it was actually a blessing in disguise, because I think the second version of my sketch ended up looking a lot better than the first one. For the second sketch, I actually knew what I was doing because I wasn't experimenting because I had to redraw the entire thing. And I also used the symmetry tool so that both sides would be exactly the same. I also changed the background to white temporarily just because I found sketching on a black background pretty hard. After sketching everything, I moved on to the line art stage, which was actually quite simple, so I got it done reasonably quickly and ended the day. We had one final class where Mrs. Art were going to give us advice before we had to hand in the assessment. So for this poster, I quickly just put in some base colors and basic shading, but there was still a lot of issues I had with it. My main issues with it were that the ears and the title blended in too much, and R4 blended into the bottom of the background even with a gradient, and the title doesn't really look like Run Rabbit Run. I also still had no idea what I wanted the story and the purpose of this poster to be. After getting feedback from Mrs. Art, she said what I thought she would say, which was that the title, you couldn't tell what it was, which I knew already, but I still didn't know how to solve. I ended up brainstorming how to fix this and just discovered that with the original base image I was working off of, it would just be impossible to make it look right because this isn't like a movie poster. I knew I needed to switch it up and deviate from the original plan, but I had such little time left. Yes, I now knew that I had to change everything if I wanted this to succeed and look better, but if I did that, I don't even know if I would have enough time to finish it. Equally though, I knew if I left it like this, it wouldn't be something I was proud of. So I took a risk. I scrapped the entire background and started working from my imagination. This time I rebuilt the poster, not only with the goal of making the title more obvious, but also building in a deep meaning to the poster that links into the story. The original poster only really had the robotic aspect of R4, whereas I think the new design linked in a lot more of that eeriness that was meant to be captured by this scene. As a result of this new title, however, I did have to lower all of R4, which then ruined took away a lot of the coloring that I did, which sucked, but was necessary for the sake of composition. In doing this though, I solved another problem of having the ears blend in too much to the title, so that works. In this version as well, I've changed the background to be completely white, which also helps solve with the contrasting problems, as I wanted it to be like a big white light behind her. As I was trying to go for more of a behind the scenes look, I decided on. You can see there's very rough sketches of wires tying back into R4's head and back. In making this decision though, I had to completely change all of the shading and lighting on R4 that I had previously done and change it to backlighting, which is another thing I don't see very often in media alone. So it took ages to find references and figure out how the hell light works. I also just darkened all of the more darker areas and made the neons pop a little bit more, just adding more contrast to the lighting. Contrast is something I really love in art generally, so I tried to make it accentuate more here. Doing this whole process as well also made me realize how good the silhouette looks. something I was very proud of myself for pulling off. For the next 2 updates, I added like a outline of light to R4, which I looked up, makes it look like it's like backlighting, as well as getting some more images on Google and placing them on like layers to make all the armor look all destroyed and rugged and bloody. Not her blood. This moment is meant to represent her coming back from a mission in bad shape, and considering you can't see her face, I wanted to really make it just look like how unfazed and casual this was for her, because she's not present in any of this. She doesn't understand how bad it is. I also added a more metallic shading to her hair, just so you can see how inorganic and robotic she really is. Now, time was rapidly ticking through the day, and honestly, I was impressed with how much I'd managed to get done, but I knew for the wiring, I was not gonna be able to draw those textures correctly at all, especially on the angle that I wanted. So I used an old technique that I have been using since the After Effects days, back when I was 12, cutting and pasting images together until they look like the thing I want them to look like. I actually realized recently there's a name for this technique called photo bashing, which is something I only learned about in class like a couple of days ago, but I just learned accidentally by experimenting when I was a kid. So that's fun. After creating the wires, I just used like the perspective tool and the warp tool to just shape them correctly. This was relatively simple. I think it turned out really good. I thought it looked really good. I added a slight gradient to the background and then just started doing the final touches with the text. And to finish, I added created by Caboodle. Like the word, like Caboodle, like my YouTube name. Like it wasn't my real name. It actually said Caboodle on the poster that I handed in. Why did I write Caboodle on my uni assessment? Well, my excuse when I was explaining it to my teacher was that if these were ever posted online, that's the name I would use. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I totally knew this was going to turn into a video by this point. But the real reason was actually that my real name was too long and I didn't want to move everything around to make it fit. For the final touches, I experimented a bit more with the glow and add some more lighting. And it was just a lighting bit. And I sent it to my friends and they were like, make it brighter. So I made it brighter and I finished the piece. I had 1 day left to finish an entire 3rd poster. Probably the most in-depth poster, as I had to draw an entire fox I didn't have a design for yet. I was already quite tired, but my motivation hadn't left me yet as I was packing up to go home. I have done more impossible things than drawing a poster in a day. I have fully edited an 1.5 hour long video in 3 days. I've spent over 100 hours on a video in a week to make sure it came out on time. For God's sake, I directed, co-wrote, co-produced, and acted in a 3-season long scripted SMP for 2 years when I was 16. I can render a goddamn poster in a day. All right, 9 a.m. It's time to lock in and get this goddamn poster done so I can be done with this. I can absolutely do this. Now having more of a set idea of what I actually wanted for Fox, I used the symmetry tool and made a final outline for him. I started by coloring R4 first, as I knew what her colors were, as I knew Fox's color scheme and lighting would make a significant difference on how R4 was going to be colored. So I made sure to get the base colors out of the way, which is again in the wrong order of stuff to do, but Homegirl didn't know that yet, so we're just gonna go with it. This was also when I learned the lesson not to spend so much time on tiny bits of posters that you can barely see. Inside of R4's calves, where the rings are, there is very intricately and accurately drawn water, except when you zoom out to the big scheme of the poster, you cannot see it at all. But if you zoom in really close, then you might be able to see it, and maybe some people will notice it. Maybe. I started experimenting with the colors and concepts of drawing fire because it was very different than anything I'd done before. And by done before, I mean the water I just drew 2 minutes earlier. This is the amazing reference of fire I found online that I loved and ended up wanting to use it as the reference for Fox's Flames. After doing the outline of Fox's Flames, I did just a gradient background and then messed around with putting some spectral kind of stars and like a spectral kind of look to the inside of Fox's head, as well as putting some more lines between the stars to try and get it to look like constellations. The smoke as well I did after this, which is also something that took a while as I had no idea how to do it. The fire was very intricately drawn, as I wanted every piece to feel unique and terrifying. The fire is drawn with 3 different layers of different colors, each drawn differently, with line art making it look like it was like rising to the sky. It took me a while to get the hang of this technique, but once I got it, it was actually quite relaxing to do. And it was looking pretty good so far. Until my eyes darted to the bottom corner of the screen. The time ticked 8 p.m. Shit. hey, I could still do this. I'm literally me. I can achieve anything I want to achieve with enough effort, right? Could probably stay here overnight if I needed to and get this done. I used to pull all-nighters to get videos done all the time. I can use the same strategies I used to keep myself awake. I can work off pure adrenaline and just sheer willpower. I need to get this done. I need to finish this so I can do well and on time. It's just like those videos were. It's just like it used to be. No. This time will be different from back then. This time, I won't go back there. I've spent so much of my life pushing away my human needs and health in favor of my work. I've put in so much effort since I took time away from YouTube to change these habits, to get healthier, to not be terrified of passion anymore out of fear it will destroy me again. I refuse to screw all of that growth up for some uni assignment. No grade is more important than my physical and mental health. I'll take the 10% dock to my score if it means I get to go home without feeling like I'm gonna faint. I will never let myself go back to that state again. And home I went, but not distraught in the slightest. Not stressed about the unfinished assignment or the amount of burnout I caused myself in this process, but proud. Proud that for the first time ever, I had chosen the option that was for me, not for anyone else. Not to impress anyone else or to get a good grade or feel like I'm valued. I chose the option that was the best for my health and my health alone. Even with an unfinished assessment, I had the best sleep that night that I'd had in a while, knowing that I was able to push past those habits that had been ingrained in me since I was a kid. I could really tell that my efforts were paying off and I was getting better. When I woke up the next day, there was technically still a day left, but it was useless because I couldn't work on anything because I didn't have the drawing equipment at the time. Oh, how much I love you. But then I remembered that at the start of the uni, I reached out to the mental health department. Since I have diagnosed ADHD and anxiety, I'd often get altercations to exams because I cannot perform under the stress of an exam, ever. And I remembered that I actually got extensions to assessments as part of that. I just had to activate them. With literally hours left till the assessment due, I messaged the mental health coordinator and asked her about the extensions and how they worked. She said that part of my support plan was that I didn't have to apply for an extension, give a doctor's note, or a reason for wanting it. It could be automatically instated, and that if I wanted, she could give me a 5-day extension right now. Yes, 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 yes. Oh my god, yes. I still got 5 more days to do this. So not only did I not have to push myself beyond my limit, I still got to hand my assessment in on time, well, kind of, technically on time, and get a good score. Oh, thank you, me from the past who was organized enough to look into the mental health plans. I love you so much, thank you. So I got to take a lovely break for the weekend and spent the next week finishing the 3rd and final poster. When arriving back to uni on Monday, I got stuck right back into it so I could finish it and never have to think about it again. Until, of course, I'm making this video, so I had to re-experience this whole thing again, but it's fine. It made a good story. I got back to actually finishing the flames, which was honestly a lot more enjoyable this time, considering the time frame I now had. Added some more stars, added some more visual effects. There wasn't a lot left to do in terms of complexity. It was just gonna be time consuming. I added some more effects and added some more shadows, but if I'm gonna be honest, the shadows, at this point, I was just kind of sick of drawing. Even though I got to take a break and I got an extra time, it was nice. I still was just kind of sick of drawing. So they were kind of very roughly put in there and I was just hoping it would be fine. And there I had it. Not able to finish within the time frame, but still to the standard of quality that I wanted without getting my mark docked. I actually ended up getting a 92% on this assessment, which I was so happy with, especially with like the amount of effort that went into it. I was over the moon. But ultimately, this whole project meant a lot more to me than just a uni assessment. I managed to prove to myself that I could draw if I tried to. No matter how many times I thought I failed or how many attempts I had to take, I could do it. And I was capable of creating something awesome without sacrificing my well-being and pushing myself past my limits. Overcoming my addiction to work is something that has been in the process for me for a while now. And I'm just incredibly proud of myself for being able to take that step back and prioritize the rest of my life and having balance more than some assessment. If you're gonna take away one thing from this video, have it be that you are capable of anything you put your mind to. No matter what anyone else says. Never stop chasing your dreams. Whether people tell you that it's not in your blood or you're naturally untalented or you just can't do it, you can. You always can. Building a skill is not something that comes immediately, but if you keep going, you can do anything you want. But in saying that, you don't have to sacrifice everything for it. You do not have to work on it 24/7. You don't have to give up other aspects of your life that you care about. You don't have to stop other hobbies that you enjoy. Stop talking to your friends. You don't have to give up and lose yourself for this thing. Always prioritize balance in your life, but never give up.
Like a hand reaching for